The sun was dying over when climbed into the wreckage of the old alien ship. The sky burned orange and red, filled with dust that never seemed to settle. This world had been beautiful once, or so the old people said. That was before the aliens came, took everything valuable from the ground, and left the humans behind like garbage. Was 17 years old. Her hands were rough and from years of digging through metal and broken machines. Her clothes were torn in many places, patched together with whatever fabric she could find. She had not slept in 2 days, but she could not stop. Not now, not when was dying. Her little brother was only 9 years old. 3 days ago he started coughing. Then came the fever. Then the shaking. Had seen this sickness before. It killed fast. The aliens had medicine that could cure it in minutes, but humans had nothing. They were forgotten, abandoned, left to survive on whatever scraps the galaxy threw away. The junkyard stretched for miles around the human settlement. Mountains of broken ships, old machines, and alien garbage covered the land. Sometimes, if a person was lucky, they could find something useful. Medical supplies that the aliens considered expired. Food packets that were past their date but still good enough for human stomachs. Technology that still worked if you knew how to fix it. Had been searching the junkyard since got sick. She found nothing. Every medical container was empty or smashed. Every supply crate had been picked clean by scavengers who came before her. But she could not give up. She would not. The alien ship she climbed into now was old, half buried in the dirt. Its metal walls were rusted and full of holes, squeezed through a gap in the side and dropped down into darkness. She turned on her flashlight, a small device she had built herself from parts she found years ago. The beam cut through the shadows. The inside of the ship smelled like rot and metal, moved carefully, stepping over broken wires and shattered glass. She had learned long ago to be careful in places like this. One wrong step could mean a cut that got infected. An infection could mean death when there was no medicine. She found the medical bay in the back of the ship. Her heart jumped when she saw it. The room was small, but she could see cabinets on the walls, storage containers on the floor. This ship had been a transport vessel once, carrying workers to mining colonies. It would have had medical supplies for emergencies. Rushed to the first cabinet and pulled it open. Empty. She tried the second one, also empty. The third, the fourth, the fifth, all empty. Someone had taken everything long ago. She dropped to her knees and opened the storage containers on the floor. Broken equipment, useless parts, nothing that could help. In the corner of the room, she saw something that made her breath catch. A medical pod. It was cracked and covered in dust, but it was still intact. Medical pods were valuable. They contained emergency supplies that could last for decades. If there was anything left inside, it could save her brother's life. Crawled over to the pod and wiped the dust from its surface. She found the release button and pressed it. The pod hissed and slowly opened. It was empty. Stared at the empty space inside the pod for a long moment. Then something broke inside her. All the fear, all the exhaustion, all the desperate hope she had been holding onto came crashing down at once. She fell back against the wall and started to cry. The sounds that came from her were not quiet. They were loud and raw and full of pain. She cried for who was going to die because she could not find medicine. She cried for her mother, who had already lost her husband to the mines 3 years ago. She cried for herself, for all the years of struggling just to survive on a world that the galaxy had thrown away. She did not know that she had fallen against an old communications relay. She did not know that the relay was still connected to a signal amplifier buried deep beneath the junkyard. She did not know that her cries were being broadcast across 17 star systems. All she knew was that she had failed. Back in the settlement, sat beside its bed. The boy was pale and thin, his body shaking with fever. His breathing was shallow and weak. Held his hand and whispered old songs to him, songs her grandmother had taught her, songs from Earth that no one remembered anymore. Earth, the home world. Humans had left it centuries ago, spreading across the stars with dreams of exploration and discovery. They had found the Galactic Collective instead. Thousands of alien species, all connected in a vast network of trade and government. Humans had hoped to join them as equals. They were wrong. The collective looked at humans and saw nothing special. Humans were weak. They could not survive in extreme temperatures. They needed specific food and water. They got sick easily. They died quickly. Worst of all, they were emotional. They felt things too strongly. They made decisions based on feelings instead of logic. The collective classified humans as a Tier 7 labor species, the lowest rank, good only for simple work in dangerous places, mining, waste processing, jobs that other species did not want to do. Some humans worked on collective stations and ships, earning just enough to survive. Others were left on worlds like abandoned colonies that the collective no longer cared about. They were not slaves exactly. They were just forgotten. Remembered when was born. She remembered holding her daughter for the first time and feeling so much love that it hurt. She remembered thinking that somehow, someday, things would get better, that humans would prove their worth to the galaxy, that her children would have a better life. Now she was watching her son die. Opened his eyes. They were glassy with fever, but he looked at his mother and tried to smile. "Is back yet?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Felt tears running down her face. "Not yet, my love. She is still looking. She will find something. She always does." Nodded slowly. "She is strong," he said, "stronger than anyone." "Yes," agreed, "she is." Closed his eyes again. His breathing grew even weaker. Held his hand and prayed to whatever might be listening. She did not believe anyone was. The galaxy did not care about humans. The universe did not answer prayers from forgotten people on forgotten worlds. But she prayed anyway. In the junkyard, finally stopped crying. She wiped her face with her dirty sleeve and forced herself to stand. Her body was exhausted. Her heart was broken. But she could not stop. She would search until she found something or until she collapsed. She climbed out of the ship and looked at the sky. The stars were coming out now, bright points of light scattered across the darkness. Somewhere up there, aliens lived in comfort and safety. They had medicine and food and warmth. They had everything humans did not have. Did not hate them exactly. Hate took too much energy. She just wished they could see her. See all the humans suffering on forgotten worlds. She wished they could understand that humans were not just weak creatures good for labor. They were people. They loved and feared and hoped and dreamed. But no one was watching. No one cared. At least that was what she believed. She did not know that her cries had traveled across the stars. She did not know that at this very moment, beings on distant worlds were listening to her pain and feeling something they could not explain. The galaxy was about to change. And it would all start with one girl's tears in a junkyard. The capital station of the Galactic Collective was called the Nexus. It floated in space at the center of 100 trade routes, a massive structure of metal and light that was home to millions of beings from thousands of species. Here, the business of the galaxy was done. Laws were made. Deals were signed. The future was decided by those with power. Worked in a small room on the lower levels of the Nexus. He was an species with 4 arms, large black eyes, and skin that was hard like armor. They were known for their focus and discipline. They made excellent workers because they did not get distracted by feelings or desires. They simply did their jobs. His job was to monitor communications from the outer sectors of the galaxy. Most of the signals he received were routine, trade reports, mining updates, shipping schedules. Sometimes there were emergency calls from ships in trouble, and he would route those to the proper authorities. It was boring work but did not mind. He did not need excitement. On this particular night was reviewing signals from Sector 47, a region of space that had been abandoned for decades. There was nothing there except dead worlds and junkyards. He expected to find nothing unusual. Then he heard the sound. At first thought there was a malfunction in his equipment. The sound was strange, unlike anything in his database. It was not language, it was not music. It was not any form of communication he had been trained to recognize. His translator software tried to analyze it and gave him an error message, emotional distress, untranslatable. Played the sound again. It was a voice, he realized, a human voice, a young female based on the frequency. She was making sounds that rose and fell, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, broken by gasping breaths. The sounds carried something that could not identify, something that made him stop what he was doing and listen. Protocol was clear. Unregistered signals from abandoned sectors were to be deleted immediately. They could contain dangerous information or corrupted data. Reached for the delete command. He stopped. His hand hung in the air above the button. He did not understand why he could not press it. Something about the sound held him in place. He played it again and again, trying to understand what he was hearing. Humans called this crying. Knew the word, but he had never really understood it. They did not cry. They did not express emotions through sound. When it was injured or distressed, they simply dealt with the problem logically. Making noise about it seemed pointless. But this sound was not pointless. Could feel that even though he did not know how to explain it. There was meaning in this crying, pain, loss, desperation. A creature fighting against something terrible and refusing to give up. Saved the file instead of deleting it. He knew he should report himself for breaking protocol. Instead, he the file to a personal device and took it with him when his shift ended. He needed to understand what he had heard. He needed someone who knew more about humans than he did. Myra was a reptilian species with scaled skin, a long tail, and eyes that changed color based on her mood. She was old, much older than, and she worked as an archivist in the Nexus Library. Her job was to preserve historical records from across the galaxy. She had been doing this work for over 200 years. Found her in her office, surrounded by data crystals and old documents. She looked up when he entered, her eyes shifting from calm blue to curious yellow. "You look troubled, young one," she said. Her voice was slow and deep, the way old always sounded. "What brings a communications officer to the archives?" Held up his device. "I found something," he said. "I need you to listen to it." Myra took the device and played the file. The sound of crying filled the small office. Myra's eyes changed again, going through several colors that did not recognize. She played the recording 3 times without speaking. "Where did this come from?" she finally asked. "Sector 47, an abandoned human colony called." Myra nodded slowly. "I remember when humans first made contact with the collective," she said. "I was young then, barely 100 years old. There was a debate about what to do with them. Some species wanted to welcome them as equals. They said humans had potential." "What happened?" "The tribunal decided they were too emotional, too unpredictable. They felt things too strongly, and that made them dangerous." Myra held up the device. "This is what they were afraid of. This sound. This ability to express pain so purely that others can feel it." Sat down across from her. "I do not understand," he admitted. We do not feel things the way humans do. But when I heard that sound, something happened to me. I could not delete it. I could not stop listening to it." Myra's eyes turned a deep green color that had never seen before. "That is because you are not as empty as you think," she said. "None of us are. The collective has taught us to suppress our emotions, to value logic above all else. But emotions are not weakness. They are what connect living beings to each other." She played the recording again. "Listen to this girl. She is suffering, she is afraid, but she is also fighting. You can hear it in her voice. She has not given up. She is crying, but she is still trying to find a way to save whoever she is trying to save." Listened more carefully. Myra was right. There was more than just pain in the sound. There was determination, strength, love. "What should I do with this?" he asked. Myra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that would change the course of galactic history. "Share it." His eyes widened. "That is against all protocols. I could be punished. We both could." "Yes," Myra agreed. "But some things are more important than protocols. For too long, the collective has treated humans as lesser beings. We have told ourselves that their emotions make them weak. But look at what their emotions can do. This one girl, crying alone on a forgotten world, has made you question everything you were taught. Imagine what would happen if others heard this." Thought about it. He thought about the millions of beings on the Nexus, all following rules, all suppressing whatever feelings they might have. He thought about the humans working in the lower levels, doing the jobs no one else wanted, treated as barely more than machines. He thought about the sound of crying, and how it had made him feel something he could not name. "I will do it," he said. That night uploaded the recording to a public network using an anonymous account. He added only a simple message. "This is a human. This is what they sound like when they are fighting for someone they love. Listen." Within hours, the recording had been downloaded 10,000 times. Within days, it had spread to every corner of the collective. Beings from hundreds of species were listening to his cries and feeling things they had forgotten they could feel. The Tribunal of Order noticed. They were angry. They demanded that the recording be found and destroyed, that whoever had shared it be punished. They called human emotionality a mimetic contaminant, a virus of feeling that threatened the stability of the collective. But they were too late. The sound had already spread too far, and across the galaxy, something was beginning to change. On knew nothing of this. She was still searching the junkyard, still trying to find medicine for. She had no idea that her tears had reached the stars. She had no idea that the galaxy was listening. The recording spread like fire through dry grass. It jumped from station to station, planet to planet, ship to ship. Every species in the collective heard it. Every being with ears or sound receptors or vibration sensors experienced the raw sound of a human girl crying in desperation. And something strange began to happen. On a mining station in Sector 12, a group of workers gathered in their rest area to listen. There were large, stone-like beings who communicated through vibrations in the ground. They had always believed that humans were too soft, too fragile to be useful for anything but simple labor. But when they felt cries through their vibration sensors, they grew very still. "What is this?" one of them asked. "It is grief," said another, an older who had worked alongside humans for many years. "It is love. It is the sound of someone refusing to surrender." They did not cry. Their bodies were not made for it, but they understood loss. They understood the pain of watching someone they cared about fade away. And for the first time, they realized that humans felt these things too, just as deeply, perhaps even more so. On a transport vessel crossing the empty space between star systems, a crew of mixed species gathered around a communications screen. Among them was a human worker named, a woman in her 30s who had spent her whole life being treated as less than others. She had learned to keep her head down, to not draw attention to herself, to accept her place in the galaxy. When the recording played, felt tears forming in her own eyes. She tried to hide them, the way she always did. Showing emotion in front of aliens was dangerous. It only proved what they already believed about humans. But then something unexpected happened. The ship's captain, a tall being covered in blue feathers, turned to look at her. His eyes, which had always been cold and distant, now held something different. "You can do this?" he asked, his voice uncertain. "You can feel like this?" Did not know what to say. She had never been asked about her feelings before. She had never been seen as someone who had feelings worth asking about. "Yes," she finally said, "we all can." The captain was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone on the ship. He bowed his head too, a gesture of respect that his species reserved only for equals. "I did not know," he said. "I am sorry." Stories like this were happening everywhere. The recording was doing something that no law or argument or protest had ever managed to do. It was making aliens see humans as real beings, not labor units, not lesser creatures, people. But not everyone was happy about this. The Tribunal of Order ruled the collective from a great chamber at the heart of the Nexus. There were 7 members, each from one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had maintained order for thousands of years by keeping everything in its proper place. Every species had a rank. Every being had a role. Emotions were dangerous because they disrupted this order. When the recording spread, the tribunal held an emergency meeting. "This must be stopped," said the first speaker, a being made of pure energy who flickered with anger. "Human emotionality is contaminating the collective. Our citizens are experiencing feelings that interfere with their productivity." "I have received reports from all sectors," said another member, a massive creature with dozens of eyes. "Workers are distracted. They are questioning their duties. They are asking why humans are treated the way they are. This is unacceptable." The tribunal decided that the recording must be classified as dangerous content. They ordered it deleted from all public networks. They announced that sharing or possessing the file was a crime against the collective. They sent investigators to find whoever had first uploaded it. But they did not understand what they were fighting. The recording could not be deleted because too many beings had already saved it. Every time the tribunal erased it from one network, it appeared on 3 others. Beings who had never broken a law in their lives were now criminals, keeping the file hidden on personal devices, sharing it in secret messages. More than that, the sound itself had changed people. You could delete a file, but you could not delete a memory. Beings who had heard crying could not forget it. The sound stayed with them, playing in their minds when they tried to sleep, rising up when they saw humans working in the corridors of their stations. A philosopher named wrote an essay that spread almost as widely as the recording itself. He called it The Forgotten Frequency. In it, he argued that the collective had made a terrible mistake. By valuing logic above all else, by suppressing emotions and treating feeling beings as lesser, they had cut themselves off from something essential. "We have built a galaxy of order," wrote. "But order without compassion is just another word for cruelty. This human girl crying alone on a dead world has shown us what we have lost. She has reminded us that we too can feel if we choose to. The question is, will we choose to?" The essay was banned, was arrested, but his words, like the recording, could not be contained. On had stopped searching the junkyard. She had found nothing. There was nothing left to find. She walked home slowly, her body aching, her heart empty. She had failed, was going to die, and there was nothing she could do. When she reached their small home, she found her mother sitting outside, staring at the sky. Was inside, unconscious now, his breathing so shallow that each breath might be his last. "I could not find anything," said. Her voice was flat, dead. She had no tears left to cry. Took her daughter's hand. "You tried," she said. "You did everything you could." It was not enough. They sat together in silence as the stars came out. Somewhere up there, beings were arguing about them, fighting over them, changing because of them. But and knew nothing of this. They only knew that they were about to lose someone they loved, and the galaxy did not care. Except the galaxy did care now. Because of her tears, because of her refusal to give up. In a small room on the Nexus, and Myra were planning something dangerous. They had found others who felt the way they did. A doctor who believed all beings deserved medical care. A pilot who was willing to risk everything for what was right. A group of workers who had donated their savings to buy supplies. They had gathered enough medicine to cure 100 humans. They had a ship fast enough to reach in 3 days. They knew that what they were planning was illegal. They knew the punishment would be severe. But they had heard crying, and they could not do nothing. "The tribunal will come after us," Myra said during their final meeting. "Yes," agreed. "We could lose everything, our positions, our freedom, maybe our lives." "Yes." Myra's eyes turned a color that meant determination in her species. "Then let us make sure it is worth it." The ship launched that night, slipping out of the Nexus through a service route that was rarely monitored. It carried 6 beings from 5 different species, all united by something that the tribunal called a contaminant. They called it compassion. And they were going to save a boy named, not because they knew him, not because they owed him anything, but because a girl's crying had reminded them that every life mattered. Even human lives. Even forgotten lives on forgotten worlds. The galaxy was changing, and the change had only just begun. The ship came down through the orange sky of like a falling star, saw it from the window of their home where she had been sitting beside for 3 days, watching him fade away. Her brother was barely breathing now. His skin was gray. His eyes had not opened in over a day. When saw the ship, she did not feel hope, she felt fear. Ships that came to were never good news. Sometimes they brought slavers looking for workers. Sometimes they brought scavengers who would kill for valuable scraps. Sometimes they brought collective officials who reminded the humans that they were nothing, that they had no rights, that they existed only because the galaxy had not bothered to finish killing them. Grabbed a rusted metal pipe that she kept by the door. It was not much of a weapon, but it was all she had. She stepped outside and stood between the approaching ship and her home. "Stay inside," she called to her mother. "Protect." The ship landed in the clearing outside the settlement. It was small, meant for maybe 10 passengers at most. The hull was scratched and dented, clearly not a military vessel or an official collective transport. That made more nervous, not less. Organized enemies were predictable. Desperate ones were not. The door of the ship opened. A ramp extended down to the dusty ground. The first being to emerge was unlike anything had ever seen up close. It had 4 arms, large black eyes, and skin that looked like dark armor. I had heard of them but never met one. They were supposed to be emotionless, efficient, cold. This one raised all 4 of its arms in a gesture that seemed meant to show it was not holding weapons. "Please," it said through a translator device around its neck, "we are not here to harm you." Did not lower her pipe. "Then why are you here?" More beings were coming down the ramp now. A reptilian creature with scales that shifted colors. A small being covered in soft fur. 2 others that could not identify. And behind them all, carrying heavy cases, were what looked like medical supplies. They took a step closer, raised her pipe higher. "My name is," the said. "We heard you." Frowned. "Heard me. I did not call anyone. I do not have a way to call anyone." Looked at her with those large black eyes. "3 days ago you were in the junkyard. You were searching for medicine. You found an old ship and went inside. When you did not find what you needed, you cried." Felt her face grow hot with shame. Crying was weakness. Crying was what the aliens mocked humans for. She had cried alone in that ship because she thought no one would ever know. "How do you know that?" she demanded. There was an old communications relay in that ship. It was still connected to a signal amplifier. Your voice was broadcast across 17 star systems. Felt like the ground was falling away beneath her feet. Her crying had been heard by aliens across the galaxy. Her moment of weakness, her breakdown, her failure. Everyone had heard it. "I do not understand," she said. "Why would that make you come here?" The reptilian being stepped forward. She was old, could tell, with scales that had faded to a soft gray-green. Her eyes were a deep purple color that seemed sad and kind at the same time. "My name is Myra," she said. "I have lived for over 200 years. In all that time I have never heard anything like the sound you made. It was not just crying, it was love. It was courage. It was everything the collective has told us that emotions are not. Myra moved closer and found herself lowering the pipe slightly. Your sound spread across the galaxy, Myra continued. Millions of beings heard it, and something happened to them. Something the tribunal has spent thousands of years trying to prevent. They felt something. They connected to you, a human they had never met on a world they had never cared about. Because of you, they remembered that they have hearts. Shook her head. This was too much to understand. I do not care about the galaxy, she said, her voice cracking. I only care about my brother. He is dying. He has been dying for days, and I could not find any medicine, and I failed him, and none of this matters if he dies. Stepped forward, moving slowly and carefully. We brought medicine, he said. That is why we came. We heard you fighting for someone you love, and we could not do nothing. He gestured to the cases behind him. We have enough to treat your brother and everyone else in your settlement who is sick. We have food and clean water and supplies that will last for months. We came to help. Stared at him. She had never been helped by aliens before. She had only been ignored, dismissed, or used. This did not make sense. Why? She asked. The collective does not care about humans. You said so yourself. We are nothing to you. Myra's eyes changed to a soft blue color. That was before we heard you cry, she said. That was before we understood what we had lost by cutting ourselves off from feeling. You reminded us, young one. You reminded the entire galaxy. From inside the house, his voice called out, What is happening? Turned. Her mother was at the door, her face pale with fear and confusion. Behind her, through the window, could see lying still on his bed. They say they have medicine, said. Her voice was barely a whisper. She was afraid to believe it. She had hoped so many times and been disappointed so many times. Myra walked past toward the house. May I see him? She asked. I am a healer. I want to help your son. Looked at the alien, then back at the alien. Years of suffering had taught her not to trust anyone from the collective, but years of being a mother had taught her something else too. When your child was dying, you would accept help from anyone. Please, said, stepping aside, please help him. Myra entered the house and went to his bedside. She opened one of the medical cases and took out a device that hummed with soft light. She ran it over his body, reading the results on a small screen. The infection has spread to his lungs, she said. He does not have much time, but we have the medicine he needs. She looked at. I need your permission to treat him. It is your right to decide. Was crying now, tears running down her weathered face. Yes, she said. Yes, please save my son. Myra prepared an injection. The medicine was a bright blue color, glowing faintly in the dim room. She administered it carefully, then sat back to wait. For several minutes nothing happened. Stood in the doorway, her hands shaking, the rusted pipe forgotten on the ground outside. She watched her brother's chest rise and fall, each breath seeming weaker than the last. Then took a deep breath, a real breath, full and strong. His color began to change, the gray fatting replaced by something warmer. His breathing steadied. His shaking stopped. He opened his eyes. He said, his voice was weak but clear. I had strange dreams. I dreamed the whole galaxy was listening to someone crying. Crossed the room and took her brother's hand. She was crying again, but this time the tears were different. This time they were joy and relief and gratitude. It was not a dream, she said. I will explain everything, but right now just rest. You are going to be okay. Outside looked up at the sky. His eyes could see farther than human eyes, and he spotted what he had been dreading. Ships, many ships coming fast. The tribunal's enforcement fleet had found them. We have company, he said quietly to the others. This is not over yet. But even as he said it, something else was happening. More signals were appearing on his scanner, ships jumping into the system from every direction. Not tribunal ships, civilian ships, cargo vessels, personal transports, hundreds of them, then thousands. They were all broadcasting the same message, filling every frequency with a single statement. We heard her too. The galaxy had come too. And they were not going to let the tribunal take without a fight. The sky above was filled with ships, had never seen so many in her entire life. They hung in the atmosphere like a second layer of stars, blinking lights in every color, vessels of every size and shape. Some were small personal transports that looked barely big enough for one being. Others were massive cargo ships that could have swallowed the entire human settlement. And they were all there because of her. The tribunal's enforcement fleet had arrived first, 7 warships bristling with weapons, their hulls painted in the cold gray colors of authority. They had come to arrest Myra and the others for violating collective law. They had come to make an example of anyone who dared to help humans. But they had not expected what happened next. The first civilian ship jumped into the system just minutes after the tribunal fleet arrived. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 100. They kept coming, pouring in from every corner of the galaxy, each one broadcasting the same message over and over. We heard her too. The commander of the tribunal fleet was a being called, a tall creature with 6 limbs and a face like polished metal. He had served the tribunal for 300 years. He had never lost a mission. He had never hesitated to enforce the law. Now, for the first time in his long career, he did not know what to do. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Over 4,000, his officer reported, "and more are arriving every minute." "This is madness," said. "They are all criminals now. Every single one of them is violating collective law by being here. Should we open fire?" Looked at the screen showing all those ships, cargo vessels, family transports, scientific research craft, ships from every species in the collective, all gathered over a forgotten human world, all united by something he could not understand. "If we fire on them, we start a war," he said, "a war against our own citizens." "Then what do we do?" Had no answer. On the surface of stood outside her home with Myra. Was awake now, sitting up in bed, still weak but growing stronger by the hour. Was beside him holding his hand, refusing to let go. "What is happening?" asked, looking at all the ships in the sky. "Who are all these people?" Myra's eyes had turned a color that had never seen before, a bright gold that seemed to glow with wonder. "They are beings from across the galaxy," she said. "They heard your recording. They felt what you felt. And when they learned that the tribunal was coming to punish those who helped you, they decided to come themselves. But why? They do not know me. They do not know we are just humans on a forgotten world." Made a sound that his translator rendered as something like a laugh. "That is exactly why," he said. "For too long, humans have been invisible. Your suffering did not matter because you were classified as lesser beings. But your crying showed the galaxy the truth. You are not lesser. You feel things as deeply as any species, perhaps more deeply, and that makes your suffering real." A communication signal came through On's device. It was from one of the ships above, a massive vessel that now recognized as a transport. There were the stone-like beings who communicated through vibrations. Their message was simple. "We stand with the crying one. We stand with all humans. We will not let the tribunal silence this voice." More messages came flooding in, from ships and ships and ships from species had never heard of, all of them saying the same thing in different ways. "We heard you. We are with you. You are not alone anymore." Felt her legs grow weak. She sat down on the dusty ground, overwhelmed by everything that was happening. She was just a scavenger girl. She had grown up eating garbage and wearing rags. She had never mattered to anyone except her family. Now the entire galaxy was watching her. A new signal came through, this one on all frequencies, meant for everyone to hear. It was Commander. "This gathering is illegal," his voice announced. "All ships must disperse immediately. Those who remain will be charged with insurrection against the collective. This is your only warning." For a moment the space above was silent. The ships hung motionless, held her breath. Then one by one the ships began to move, but they did not disperse. Instead, they moved closer together, forming a wall between the tribunal fleet and the planet below. Thousands of ships, all standing together, all refusing to leave. A response came from somewhere in the civilian fleet. The voice was old and rough, belonging to a species that did not recognize. "We have obeyed the tribunal for thousands of years," the voice said. "We have followed every law, accepted every classification, suppressed every feeling that did not serve the collective. But we cannot obey this order. We will not let you punish these beings for showing compassion. If that makes us criminals, then the law is wrong." Cheers erupted across the communication channels. More voices joined in, each one adding their agreement. The noise was overwhelming, chaotic, beautiful. "Tried one more time. You are making a terrible mistake. The tribunal will not forget this." "Good," the old voice replied. "Neither will we." The tribunal fleet hung in space for several long minutes. Then, slowly, they began to turn. One by one, the warships changed course and jumped away, retreating to wherever they had come from. They were gone. On the surface, watched them leave. She was crying again, but she did not try to hide it this time. Around her, aliens from a dozen different species were landing their ships, stepping out onto the dusty ground looking at her with eyes and sensors and organs she did not understand. But she understood what they were feeling. It was the same thing she felt. Connection, hope, love. Myra approached her gently. "They want to hear from you," she said. "All of them. They came here because of your voice. They want to hear it again, not through a broken relay, but directly." Shook her head. "I do not have anything to say. I am not a leader. I am not special. I just wanted to save my brother." "That is exactly why you should speak," Myra said. "You do not need to give a great speech. Just tell them what you told me. Tell them the truth." Looked at all the beings around her. Thousands of eyes were watching. Millions more were probably watching through screens and transmissions across the galaxy. She felt small and scared and completely unprepared. But then she felt a hand slip into hers. She looked down and saw standing beside her, still weak, but on his feet. He had walked out of the house to be with her. "I believe in you," he said quietly. "You always fight, even when it is hard, even when it seems impossible." Squeezed his hand. Then she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I do not understand why you came here," she said. Her voice was trembling, but she kept going. "I do not understand why my crying mattered to you. I was just trying to save my brother. He was sick and dying, and I could not find medicine, and I did not want to let him go. That is all. I could not stop fighting because I love him." She paused, looking around at all the faces watching her. "Is that so strange?" she asked. "Do you not have people you love? Do you not have someone you would fight for, even if it seemed hopeless? I think you do. I think that is why you came. You remembered what it feels like to love someone so much that you cannot give up." The translator devices carried her words to every ship, every station, every corner of the galaxy that was listening. And everywhere those words reached, beings felt something stir inside them, something they had been taught to ignore, something the collective had told them was weakness. They felt their hearts. "I do not know what happens now," continued. "I do not know if things will change or if they will go back to the way they were. But I know that right now, in this moment, you chose to feel. You chose to care about a human girl you never met. And that means something. It means we are not as different as the tribunal says. It means we can be more than ranks and classifications. It means we can be family." She stopped talking. The silence stretched out across space. Then slowly a sound began to rise. It started on one ship, then spread to another, then another. It was not cheering. It was not applause. It was something else entirely. It was crying. Beings across the galaxy were crying. Species that had never shed tears were feeling moisture on their faces for the first time. Beings that communicated through light were flickering in patterns of grief and joy. Creatures that had no eyes were vibrating with emotions they could not name. They were crying together. For the first time in the history of the collective, they were feeling together. And it was beautiful. 1 year later, the tribunal of order fell. It did not happen through war or violence. It happened because the galaxy simply stopped believing in their rules. New leaders emerged, ones who valued compassion as much as logic. Humans were reclassified, not as a labor species, but as emotional ambassadors, the beings who had reminded the galaxy what it meant to feel. A statue was built in the place where it had landed after climbing out of that wrecked ship. It showed a young woman on her knees, face lifted to the sky, mouth open in a cry that could not be heard but was felt by everyone who passed. The inscription read, "She did not know the galaxy was listening, but we were, and we will never forget how to feel again." Visited the statue sometimes when she needed to remember how far they had come. Was always with her, healthy now, studying medicine so he could help others the way he had been helped. Had opened a small school, teaching alien children and human children together. And every night, when the stars came out, ships passed overhead. They blinked their lights in greeting, a small gesture from travelers who remembered what one girl's tears had done. Would wave at them, a smile on her face. She had cried alone in a junkyard, thinking no one could hear her. But the galaxy had heard. And nothing would ever be the same.